When I first stepped foot on Camp Schwab, I couldn't shake the feeling that this place was different. Nestled on Okinawa, the base was soaked in history, a silent witness to the brutal battles of World War II. The air felt thick with unspoken stories, and the dimly lit barracks and sprawling jungle nearby only added to the eerie atmosphere. My introduction to the supernatural began subtly. It started with hushed stories exchanged in the mess hall about a young girl seen wandering the ramp area late at night. The guys said she was a ghost from an accident long ago, her spirit unsettled. I listened with a mix of skepticism and intrigue, not sure what to make of these tales. The first real account that grabbed my attention came from my staff sergeant. One foggy evening, while inspecting the vehicles at the ramp, he saw her, a small figure in a faded dress standing by the trucks. He swore she vanished into the jungle when he tried to approach. The duty driver with him that night backed up every word, his face pale as he recounted the incident. Word of these sightings spread like wildfire, and soon enough, everyone had a story or knew someone who did. I remember one night, lying in my bunk, the unsettling silence of the barracks was interrupted by whispers about the girl. Mike, bunked next to me, told me he felt an inexplicable chill every time he walked past the laundry room after dark. As the days turned into weeks, my initial skepticism waned. The stories were too consistent, the fear in my comrades' eyes too real. I started to feel a prickling sensation whenever I walked the dim hallways alone, my mind replaying the tales of those who had seen her. That's when I knew Camp Schwab was more than just a military base. It was a place where the past lingered, palpable and haunting. As more Marines came forward with their encounters, the legend of the ghost girl wove itself into the fabric of our daily lives, setting the stage for my own inevitable encounter. As the months rolled on, the encounters with the ghostly girl didn't just continue, they intensified. It was one chilly night that truly turned my skepticism into belief. Kyle and I were on duty, tasked with checking the perimeter when we spotted her by the fire exit. There she stood, silent and still, staring right through us with hollow eyes. Before we could gather our wits to approach her, she vanished into the shadows of the barracks. We searched the area but found nothing but the cold night air and our own racing hearts. Later that week, Mike came to me, shaken. He had been doing laundry alone in the evening when he felt a cold hand brush against his back. Whirling around, he saw nothing but the flickering light of the laundry room and the empty corridor behind him. That night, he woke up from a vivid dream where a woman's hand was reaching out to grab him from the darkness. The fear in his voice as he described his dream was something I couldn't dismiss as mere imagination. Mike's story wasn't an isolated incident. I heard similar tales from others, each more convincing than the last. It was during a barracks gathering that Kyle decided to share his experience. He spoke of seeing the girl multiple times, each sighting more clear and terrifying than the last. His encounters added a chilling layer of validity to what we were all beginning to fear. Our friend Luke, who had transferred from 29 Palms, joined us one evening. He shared his own eerie experiences, suggesting that the ghost girl might be following some of us from one base to another. This idea haunted me. Was this spirit attached to us, or were we just noticing more because of the stories we shared? These stories filled our nights, blending into the fabric of our daily lives at Camp Schwab. The ghost girl wasn't just a specter from a bygone tragedy. She was a constant, unnerving presence that we couldn't ignore. Each tale, each sighting made it harder to separate fact from fear-induced fiction. As our encounters grew, so did our resolve to confront whatever haunted us. We started to document our experiences, sharing details and patterns we noticed. The more we talked, the more real she became. No longer just a shadow in the night, but a shared reality that none of us could escape. We were bound by this ghostly presence, a thread of the supernatural that tied us together in the eerie world of Camp Schwab. The frequency and intensity of our encounters with the ghost girl increased as the months wore on. It was as if she became more emboldened with each passing day. One night, gathered in the dimly lit common room, several of us decided to share every detail of our experiences. As each Marine recounted their encounters, a chilling pattern emerged. The sightings often occurred during the new moon, and they were growing more vivid and unsettling. One particular evening stands out in my memory, marking the climax of our shared experiences. It was late, the barracks quiet except for the occasional sound of night patrols. Kyle and I, along with a few others, decided to stay up and keep watch in the hallway where most sightings had occurred. The air was tense, heavy with anticipation. Then, just past midnight, she appeared. The young girl, clearer than ever, stood at the end of the hallway. We all saw her, frozen in place, her eyes seeming to look right through us. The moment was fleeting. She disappeared as quickly as she had come, but it was enough to affirm everything we had feared. Spurred by this encounter, we planned an investigative night. We equipped ourselves with cameras and voice recorders, determined to capture proof of what we were experiencing. The night was fraught with technical glitches, cameras malfunctioning, batteries draining unusually fast, and an oppressive feeling of being watched. Despite our efforts, we ended up with more questions than answers. Throughout this period, our discussions about the ghost girl became more serious. We delved into the base's history, trying to piece together her story from the fragments of information we had. It seemed she was not just a remnant of a past tragedy, but a persistent presence, woven into the very fabric of Camp Schwab. These discussions brought us closer together, creating a bond forged through shared fear and curiosity. We were a unit, united not just by our duty, but by our need to understand the paranormal phenomena that had become such a prominent part of our lives at the base. As the chapter of our investigation drew to a close, we realized that some aspects of Camp Schwab's haunting might never be fully understood. The ghost girl had become a part of us, a haunting memory that would linger long after our time at the base was over. We had to accept that some mysteries remained beyond our reach, trapped in the shadows of the past, as elusive as the ghost girl herself. As my deployment at Camp Schwab drew to a close, I found myself reflecting more deeply on the experiences that had defined my time here. The encounters with the ghost girl had not only tested our nerves, but had also brought us together in ways I hadn't anticipated. It was during those final weeks that I began to accept the supernatural events as part of the fabric of the base, intertwined with its history and our lives. I spent one of my last evenings at the base walking around the areas where we'd seen her. The ramp area, the dimly lit hallways, and the laundry room felt different now, less menacing, almost familiar. I realized that these stories of hauntings would be the ones I'd carry with me, the stories I'd tell when someone asked about my time in Okinawa. Passing the torch, so to speak, became part of our routine. New Marines arrived, and those of us who were leaving shared tales of the ghost girl. It was interesting to see their reactions: skepticism, fear, curiosity. It mirrored our own when we first arrived. These stories had become a rite of passage, a shared narrative that bonded us as Marines stationed at Camp Schwab. Reflecting on the legacy of the ghost girl, I understood that she was more than just a specter. She was a symbol of the unresolved histories that lingered in this place. The island had seen so much trauma and loss, and perhaps she was one small manifestation of that turbulent past. Accepting her presence helped me come to terms with the other intangible aspects of life and duty here. On my final night, I looked out over the base, the moon casting long shadows across the ground. I felt a sense of peace, a reconciliation with the unknown. Though we never solved the mystery of the ghost girl, I left Camp Schwab with a profound respect for the power of history and the unseen forces that shape our experiences. Leaving Camp Schwab, I carried with me not just memories of duty and camaraderie, but also a deep-seated wonder for the mysteries that we'd encountered. These stories, these experiences, they didn't just haunt me. They enriched my understanding of the complexities of life, history, and the lingering spirits of the past. It was an ending, but also a beginning, as every ending should be.